everybody, and welcome once again to Real Shame, a show where we talk about movies that we've never seen off of our list of movie blind spots, list of shame. My name is Andy.
And I'm Adam.
And today, or actually this week, we're going to talk about some futuristic sci-fi films that actually both came out in 1995. But before we jump into today's film, we always like to start off every Monday's episode with what we have been watching lately. So Adam, what have you been watching lately?
So I noticed the last couple of podcasts we've done, you've watched collections of movies. So you've done the Bond films, you've done the Mission Impossible films.
Right.
So this week, or this past week, Kirby wanted to go through the Terminator films. And there's 6 Terminator films, guys. I can't believe there's already 6.
6.
So, but before I get into those, I also watched another Keanu Reeves movie, because we're going to talk about a Keanu Reeves movie a little bit later. Mm-hmm. I watched 47 Ronin. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not bad. It's not great. It's long, but I don't think it's that bad.
I don't remember what I thought of it. It's been too long since I saw it.
All right. Well, I kind of liked it. Like I said, it's a little long, but I enjoyed it. So let's go into my Terminator film. So like you, I kind of called out, I want to do a little bit of order and call out like some of my favorite things out of it.
Yep.
So my order from worst to best, descending for Terminator films is Salvation, I think is terrible. Okay. And wish it was stricken from the planet. 3, Dark Fate, which is the latest one. Genisys, 1, and then 2. So I like 2 the best. I think I'm higher on Genisys than anyone else on the planet.
I think you are too, because I would put that last.
I really like Genisys. I like the when it flashes back to the 80s and you see that opening scene all over again. And I like the I think it's better than most people think it is. All right, so with models of Terminators, again, descending order. Dead last is Marcus Wright, played by Sam Worthington in Terminator Salvation. Spoiler alert, he's a Terminator and he sucks. Next to that is the T1, which you see in Terminator 3. It's the Ed 209 looking thing. It's a ripoff of Ed 209. It's terrible.
Oh, yeah, I remember that thing.
Next to that's TX. That's the Lady Terminator. She's good, but doesn't really, not that innovative, not that cool. Not my favorite.
You're talking about Kristanna Loken?
Yeah.
What happened to her career?
she was TX.
I know she was in Blood Rain, that movie.
Oh, was she really?
Uwe Boll or whatever. I think he directed that, yeah.
Then after that's the T3000, which is basically what John Connor is in Terminator Genisys.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. Even though I like that movie, terrible Terminator, in my opinion. Then we get to the good ones. The Rev 9 from Terminator Dark Fate. I think looks cool. I like the way it looks. I like the way it interacts. Where he separates and all that kind of stuff. You have the T101, which is the biomechanical skeleton we always see in the future. I've heard it called the T800, but I've also heard it called T101. Whatever, it's that. Then we have the T800. Arnold himself is number 2. And my favorite Terminator model is the T1000. Robert Patrick does an excellent job. Very creepy, even years later. All right, I'm going to go through the rest of these really fast. John Connor's descending order. Tie in last place. Christian Bale, Nick Stahl. Both terrible. Wish I can forget that happened. Next to that is Michael Edwards. He's the future John Connor. He's better than both Christian Bale and Nick Stahl, in my opinion. Then we have Jason Clarke. Then we have Thomas Dekker from the Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I just included on the list because I think he's better than the rest of the people. And then we have Edward Furlong as my favorite John Connor. Kyle Reese, Jai Courtney's in last place. Then Anton Yelchin by default. He doesn't do anything great, but he's not as bad as Jai Courtney. And then we have Michael Biehn, who's awesome as Kyle Reese.
Yeah.
So that's everything you need to know about Terminator. And the list is immutable and it's 100% correct. And if you disagree, then you're wrong. All right. So that's a lot of what I've been watching. Andy, what have you been watching?
So we reviewed the stinker that is Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, and I went home and I watched the Shin Godzilla movie, which I don't like. So it's it came from Japan, obviously because the Godzilla movies that we've had over here the last few years is Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters. But Shin Godzilla, I give them credit for trying to put like a new spin on a Godzilla movie. So it's basically, the movie is about the bureaucracy and the red tape that they have to cut through in order to stop Godzilla.
Godzilla the bureaucrat.
Most of the movie takes place in boardrooms and meeting rooms and like IT like spaces and things like that, because it cuts from this group trying to like figure out how do we stop Godzilla. It cuts to like the mayor who's like, I have to meet with so and so, and then whatever. I mean, it's a different take on it, but it's boring because of that. Like, I want to see Godzilla come in and just fuck shit up.
I'm just imagining Godzilla wearing like a short sleeve button down and like a pocket protector.
That would get an immediate thumbs up from me. If Godzilla himself was like a nerd or like a business guy or something like that, I would love that.
So the next one will be IT Godzilla.
That would be amazing. I even without having seen that, I give it a favorable review. But Shin Godzilla, I just found to be boring. Again, I can see why some people like it because it is a different kind of twist on the Godzilla, story or whatever. But I didn't like it. The Godzilla special effects are okay, but you just don't see enough of them, and he just doesn't do enough. He also starts off. He like evolves over the movie, and he starts off as this really weird looking monster that drags across the ground, and then he eventually is able to stand upright after he evolves, but it's just kind of weird. I've talked about on the show before how I have a John Carpenter television movie deficiency. So I watched one of his television. He actually only did 2 television movies. The third one that he worked on was an anthology film for Showtime.
Masters of Horror.
Well, it's Body Bags.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think he did do something on Masters of Horror, but he did Elvis with Kurt Russell for TV, and he did the movie that I watched, which is called Someone's Watching Me from 1978. He actually shot it right before he shot Halloween.
Interesting. Very
much a television movie. It kind of drags on, but it's not bad, and it's kind of cool to see early John Carpenter stuff. I thought it was all right. I watched a couple of Olivia de Havilland movies, and I watched a couple of John Saxon movies because we lost them. I guess now it's been a couple of months ago. Olivia de Havilland, I watched My Cousin Rachel with her and Richard Burton. They actually did another version. So that's from a novel by Daphne du Maurier, who wrote like Rebecca and Don't Look Now. They did another version of it in 2017 with Rachel Weisz, which I've not seen. But I thought the one with Olivia de Havilland and Richard Burton and Olivia de Havilland was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
And then I watched, as far as John Saxon goes, I watched a Western with him and Marlon Brando called The Appaloosa, which I thought was pretty fun. He plays like a bandit who steals Marlon Brando's horse, which is an Appaloosa. That's where they get the title from.
Is that the same Appaloosa that Ed Harris would go on and make? Same story?
Okay. I have no idea.
You did a movie called Appaloosa, I remember, right?
And then I watched. So I tried to find a movie that Olivia de Havilland and John Saxon were in together, but according to IMDb, there's not any, because you can do like an advanced search on IMDb that says show me the movies that has this person and this person or whatever, and I think you can keep adding people, but I didn't see any overlap in their careers, strangely, because both of them did a lot of movies. But they both did movies about killer bees in the 1970s that both came out the same year, 1978.
Close enough.
They both are unbelievably bad. They're terrible. The first one is called The Swarm, and it's actually considered like a disaster film because it was directed by Irwin Allen, who was the master of disaster in the 1970s, although he mainly produced disaster films. But this one he actually directed. It has an all-star cast, including Michael Caine and Fred McMurray and a lot of other people, and it's awful. It's actually, what I was reading was it's considered one of the worst films of all time. Apparently they didn't see the other bee movie that I watched with John Saxon called The Bees, because that was even worse than The Swarm. It came out a few months after The Swarm, that The Bees did, and it's just nonsensical. It makes no sense. The editing is just all over the place. I couldn't tell what was going on other than there were bees in it, and at one point they can talk to the bees, like the bees can speak, and it's just really weird. It also has a bonus because it has John Carradine, who didn't say no to anything in his later life, doing the worst German accent you've ever heard in a film. So Anyway,
Sound amazing.
it is. It's amazing. It's amazingly bad. It would be fun to kind of make fun of.
Yeah.
And I will say this about The Swarm, the one that Irwin Allen did. I thought the special effects were actually pretty good in it. That's really the only good thing about it. The special effects for the bees are really terrible.
Okay.
So, but that's what I've been watching.
All right. Well, that's what we've been watching. So we're going to do a sci-fi movie from the 90s starring Keanu Reeves. And no, it's not The Matrix, fooled you guys, unless you saw the podcast or episode title. We're going to go into 1995's Johnny Mnemonic.
Activating Pemex memory doubler. Your present capacity 80 gigabytes. Doubler loading. Your storage capacity is now 160 gigabytes. Warning, do not exceed capacity.
1995's Johnny Mnemonic. Keanu Reeves plays a data courier in this dystopian cyberpunk future, and thanks to an implant in his brain, he has a whopping 80 gigs of space.
That's a lot.
It's a lot for back then. He's been saving up money to get that transplant removed, and with his last job, he'll have enough to pay for it. But the last client has given him something, or given him a lot more than what he's bargained for. So this is a movie that I've seen a couple times, that a movie Andy hasn't seen.
Strangely enough.
Strangely, yeah. It felt like it was everywhere in the mid-90s. So what'd you know about Johnny Mnemonic going into it, and what'd you think about Johnny Mnemonic this time?
I actually worked at a video store when this came out, and I think I even have like a video store poster for Johnny Mnemonic.
That's
at
cool.
home, because all the old video movie posters that I had from back in the day, I just like rolled them all up into a giant tube, and I think I've still got it somewhere. Cool. I think my roommate rented this one time, but I just didn't watch it with him for whatever reason. Maybe I thought it was hentai. No, I didn't. But no, I've seen, maybe bits and pieces of this, but I've never seen it all the way through. So now I've watched it, and I must say that you're in trouble when probably the best actor in the movie is Dolph Lundgren.
Cyber Jesus or whatever.
He, to me, was possibly the only entertaining thing about this movie.
Oh, really?
I thought this movie was really dark, dreary, and dull. I just didn't think it was very fun. I did like the kind of quaintness of the CGI and like there's some things about it. I wrote down some things, movies that came out either before or after this, but that Johnny Mnemonic kind of evoked for me, and that was The Net.
Yes.
Tank Girl, because I think Ice-T kept his same get-up for Tank Girl for Johnny Mnemonic, except he's not like a kangaroo in Johnny Mnemonic.
And when they're on Spider's car, there is definitely like a Tank Girl homage, I feel like.
Yeah.
Around that time, I felt there is a Tank Girl homage for sure.
Minority Report with him like doing this kind of thing. Brain Scan, just because some of the CGI computer stuff reminded me of Brain Scan with Edward Furlong.
Yeah.
Your favorite John Connor.
Yeah, the best.
The PlayStation 1, the Sega Saturn, Blade Runner, The Matrix, and Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, all of those I was thinking of while I was watching Johnny Mnemonic. But yeah, I thought the acting was quite bad, even from Keanu, even by Keanu standards. Like, I don't think Keanu Reeves has ever been like a really good actor, but he plays to his strengths in most of the things that he chooses. So like Point Break, he's fine. The John Wick movies, he's fine. The Matrix movies, he's fine. Dangerous Liaisons, not fine. Dracula, not fine. Like stuff like that. But even in this is just kind of a dumb action flick, but I still thought his acting was really wretched. I thought Henry Rollins was really terrible. I mean, again, it was kind of cool seeing some of these cast members like Henry Rollins, like Dolph Lundgren, like Udo Kier, Ice-T. I love Takeshi Kitano. He's one of my favorite Japanese filmmakers, but I mainly like the movies that he directs, not necessarily the movies that he's in. Because, I mean, he's so wooden in this movie because I think he struggles with English. Because I've never seen him in a movie where he has a lot of English dialogue. Even he's in Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson, and I don't think he says a lot of English in that movie either. Because he just is not... He doesn't act very well in when he's speaking in English. But yeah, I really didn't like it, other than when Dolph Lundgren showed up on screen as the Jesus-y guy.
Yeah, Cyber Jesus.
Yeah. He was hilarious.
He has a name. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
And I did kind of think Keanu's little rant that he goes on about how he wants beers and pizza or something. I can't remember what he said, but I thought that was kind of funny. But other than that, and I don't know who the female lead is. I mean, I wrote her name down. It's Dina Meyer.
She was in Starship Troopers.
She is. Oh.
She's Dizzy in Starship Troopers, I think.
Okay, well, that's probably the only other thing that I've seen her in.
She's been in a couple things since then, but yeah, I think Starship Troopers for me is the big thing that stands out for me.
Yeah, I just didn't find this movie very entertaining. I thought it was just really dull, honestly. And the dolphin porpoise thing at the end.
I call him Flipper.
Flipper, that's good. It had me cracking up. I didn't care for it. I'm guessing you do like it better.
Yeah, I do like it. I think, nostalgia plays into it a bit.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, when The Matrix was coming out, the what is the Matrix and all that stuff. Like, I wanted things of that ilk to, like, watch because I was really excited about it. And this was one of those movies that I would watch to get amped up about the Matrix, right? Because it was another kind of sci-fi movie that had Keanu Reeves in it. So I felt like it was, it just kind of felt like it was in the same genre and it was giving me the same feels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I watched Johnny Mnemonic recently, and I think it's one of those movies that maybe if you don't watch it too frequently, you grow fonder of it kind of thing of it. But overall, I do like the movie. I think it's a whole lot of fun. I don't ask a whole lot of this movie. I don't expect a whole lot out of it, and you don't get a whole lot out of it in that case. But I do like I like the way the things are visualized. It's really interesting now being almost a year. We're like a year ahead of when the movie takes place.
I know it takes place next year, so get your VCRs ready, as Ice-T says in the movie.
Yeah.
I was like, he expects there to still be VCRs in 2021.
My favorite thing is that you still have the dial-up sounds when you're connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So all that kind of stuff is just really quaint and interesting and fun.
And I agree with that. I find all that stuff charming just because I love that stuff. Again, it reminds me of like PlayStation 1 or Sega Saturn type graphics. I dig that stuff. Yeah.
But I can understand how, if it wasn't something you've watched when you're younger, that how coming into it late could probably be something that you don't like. Yeah. But I really just have a lot of fun with it. I think it's, not to compare it to the next movie we're going to do, but or two, I think it's shot more interestingly than that movie. I like how dark it is. I like how grainy it is. I think it's pretty well done. I don't have the same criticisms, and probably because I don't have the same expectations with you on everyone's acting and stuff like that. I think they do just enough to kind of get the story moving and keep me interested.
Yeah.
When I'm watching it. And the opening crawl was very cool looking and stuff like that. You don't really see an opening crawl like that.
Well, I was interested in the director, or like when I was looking at like his filmography or whatever, because I never heard of the guy. Robert Longo is his name. Well, so first, I guess before we talk about the director, we talk about William Gibson.
Yeah, I left that out. Yep.
Who wrote the novel or the story that this is based on. I've read Neuromancer, which he wrote, which is probably his most famous or best received kind of novel. I read it, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years ago, something like that. I liked it, and it was definitely influential with cyberpunk, and I guess it introduced the term cyberspace, probably some other internet terms that we know. So I think he's a very kind of influential, futuristic kind of writer. Yeah. But the director, Robert Longo, I was looking him up. This is the only feature film he ever did. But he was an artist and still is an artist. I mean, it's not like he quit or anything like that. But apparently he did some music videos in the 80s. He did a Tales from the Crypt episode.
Yes, that's all.
One Tales from the Crypt episode. And then he did a short film. It's about a half an hour long called Arena Brains, which I actually watched earlier today on YouTube. I did. I had some time to kill.
You want some Robert Longo in your life?
I had some time to kill during lunch, and I was like, let me check this out. And the full thing is on YouTube. It has Ray Liotta and Steve Buscemi. So it came out in '87. It's got Ray Liotta, Steve Buscemi, Mark Boone Jr., who you might know from like Sons of Anarchy. He's the long-haired guy with the beard. He always looks like that. I can't remember who else.
One of them from Sons of Anarchy, because feel like almost
Well,
like
that's true.
30%
That's
of
a
the
bad.
cast.
That's a bad description. I'm having trouble thinking of what else he's in. But when you see the guy, you'll know who I'm talking about. It may have one or two. Oh, it's got Sean Young in it, really briefly. But yeah, I watched it, and Michael Stipe, the lead singer of REM,
Oh,
is in
cool.
it. So it's very weird, and well, I mean, it's just basically it's these little vignettes of these New Yorkers, but it's kind of strung together. Just it didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
And what's the name of it again?
Arena Brains.
That's it's about people, vignettes of people in New York.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That makes sense, I guess. No.
Yeah. But he also is known for a series of paintings that he did called Men in the Cities, which I've actually seen some of those paintings, not in real life, but just like on the internet and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them has been used for an album cover by a guy named Glenn Branca. The album is called The Ascension, and I've actually never listened to The Ascension, but I've always heard it's very cool because Glenn Branca was like a great guitarist guy. So maybe worth checking out. But the album cover is from one of the Men in the Cities portraits that Robert Longo did.
All that's completely over my head.
And the AI lady in the movie that talks to Takeshi Kitano is his wife.
Oh,
or was his wife?
Robert Longo's wife.
Robert Longo's wife. I think they divorced, but was his wife at the time. Barbara Sukawa. I don't know how to say her name, but it's.
So what'd you think of the depiction of all the cyberspace kind of stuff with the internet and him like reaching out and grabbing things and flipping out the keyboard and typing? And...
I mean, I thought it was, again, kind of quaint and cheesy, but it was, I mean, that stuff's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily accurate for
obviously.
today's times.
Well,
but,
I don't know. We have, 6 months?
I know. I guess we'll wait and see. But, I thought that was kind of fun. Yeah, that kind of stuff, it's kind of, in a way, it's a little laughable, of course, but I like it. Yeah, it's fine. But I just... And again, I sat down with high hopes. I really, really wanted to like this, but I just did not feel myself very entertained by the film, unfortunately.
I can get that. I think I
should have watched it. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I should have watched it back in the 90s.
Yeah, yes, I agree. You should have watched it, right after you watched Independence Day.
I should have.
and I think we kind of mentioned it a little bit with Enemy State too. It's fun seeing these actors again. Like you said, was it Robert Odo? Or no?
Udo Kier.
Udo
the
Kier,
German guy, yeah.
I like him. He has a very interesting face.
Yeah,
and it's always fun to see him kind of on screens and stuff like that.
Very true.
But I mean, that's all I kind of wanted to say about Johnny Mnemonic. I'm obviously a little bit more positive than you are. I think it's just a fun nostalgia trip through cyberspace, through VR. Of this kind of fun little 90s movie.
Well, it's 13% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Makes sense.
with a 31% audience score, and it got 2 thumbs down from Siskel and Ebert, and Malton gave it 1.5 stars.
No bomb.
Not quite a bomb, but just barely not quite a bomb.
So in the news, they're making a sequel to Tron Legacy. Should they make a sequel to Johnny Mnemonic instead, or you just want to leave this one?
They could make a sequel to it, or they could reboot it, or something like that. I mean, I'd be down.
I think there's a lot of anime influences in Johnny Mnemonic. It'd be interesting to see it more kind of play out as an anime.
Yeah.
And from what I understand too in reading is that there's a Japanese cut that actually plays more like an anime.
I heard that.
So I would be curious to see what that looks like and how that plays as a movie versus this one.
Yeah. Instead
of this like kind of straightforward version of it. All right, well, that's our review on Johnny Mnemonic. So a little bit about the next movie we chose is, kind of went back and forth and wanted to choose another kind of sci-fi computer-based thriller from around the same time period. And luckily enough, another one came out in 1995. And it's a movie starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe. And that movie is Virtuosity. Yeah. So stay tuned next, guys, as we dig into Virtuosity. And also on those Wednesday episodes, we answer viewer questions. So if you have a question that you'd like us to answer on air, shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. Follow us on social media @realshame. If you're listening to us on the podcast or watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, tell your friends, because that stuff really does count and really does matter, and we really would appreciate that. And stay tuned next time as we talk about Virtuosity. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.